Hey everyone, this is Faye Enigma. Those who don't know, I have web pages spread all over the internet. I kind of accumulate these little corners of the World Wide Web. Not a whole lot of people are privileged to see a lot of the work that I do. I actually have a dream log. It hasn't been updated in quite some time. I just haven't had the time or the mental capacity to actually sit down and log all the dreams that I have. And I have my fair share. Thought it might be interesting to actually read one of my dreams that I had from September 23rd, 2012. And anybody who would actually like to go to the webpage and read them for yourself, it's www.fayenigma.webs.com. Okay, this one is filed under Nightmare. It's the majority of what my dreams consist of. There is this presence in the house. This presence is the first noticed as little unnerving happenings. At first, it was just assumed it was drained batteries and children's toys, ill-stacked pots and pans, unlatched doors, and the typical child's imaginary friend. Young C, my nephew, had begun to talk, or rather babble, at nothing in particular, and it seemed to play as though he had someone there with him. Someone other than us around him. As time went on, however, it became clear that these interruptions in our daily lives weren't just coincidences, and whatever had entered our home was particularly drawn to C. He was quite special. They knew he always had this aura of innocence and purity, but never expected him to be a target of anything malicious. In truth, in the beginning, it didn't seem malevolent at all. But as time went on, it grew in power. Seed became repeatedly sick, and it seemed like life was being drained. More and more instances of random noises, shadows, moving objects, and other paranormal activity were being witnessed. I, the wife, was quite powerfully spiritual and picked up the darkness and anger, but it had been years since I extended my senses or used my gifts as an empath. As the darkness grew, so did my awareness in such close proximity. The agonizing hatred that began to permeate the home was becoming crushing. The husband himself is something of a magnet for wandering spirits, and while he believes in ghosts, spirits, and other creatures, he even had a few experiences of his own when he was young, he has blinded himself unintentionally from them. So when strange events began to occur, he began trying to find a rational excuse for them. The negative spirit, demon, whatever it was, continued to grow stronger and took minute delight in watching on the rare occasion that the husband and I were able to engage ourselves intimately. We never seemed to have the time or energy, but when we managed to scrounge it up, the sinister creature greatly enjoyed the peep show and became enamored with me. I took it upon myself to use my knowledge and belief system to try a blessing to cleanse the home using sage and sea salt. The house became quiet for a couple weeks, but the pandemonium returned with a vengeance. The stress affected everyone living in the home. Fights break out over little things, tempers become very short. One night, and as an argument was about to come to a head, several child toys erupted into a clatter of music and noise. I, acutely aware of the eyes in the room, searing my very flesh and taking great joy from the tempest of anger, shattered. The swirling emotions were just too much. And I once again felt like a terrified little girl who could not control her gifts and had hundreds of other individual emotions bearing down on me. I turned, hysteric, toward the clamoring noise, and I yelled for it to stop. Suddenly, there was silence. I then turned to my husband, tears glittering in my eyes. Silence. Then the din begins anew, and the tears topple onto my pale cheeks. Go away! You are not welcome here! From room to room, I chant an old prayer my grandmother had taught me. The house remained unstable and loud. With each and every absolute step that I took, it just laughed. With everyone absolutely desperate, I contacted an old friend, a friend who stepped up and to be ordained to perform my wedding. I pled with him for help after these long, exhausting months of torment, seeking his aid as a holy man, seeking any other possible avenue. A shaman, a psychic, anyone who could be spared since my attempts to purify the home had failed. He gathers up a group of fellow practicers and travels to the home. As they set up the ceremony to be performed, everyone but the husband, myself, and those who have come to take part in the rescue have been moved to a safe location. Candles were lit in the home, sage was burned, water was blessed, barriers of salt were placed. A table was erected, and upon it laid spiritual weapons, crucifixes, daggers, and even guns with ammunition that was blessed. Bullets were concocted using the most holy of ingredients and marked off with silver crosses. Tape recorders and other electronic sound equipment was installed. The ceremony began. It was eerily quiet. The first wave of the ceremony had ended. The darkness felt very close, very treacherous. The husband began to act strangely now, not at all like himself, and it was soon clear that he had become possessed. His blindness to the other world did not spare him. The demon attached himself to his body, and he successfully evicted his spirit somehow. The demon inside his body attacked me, completely enraged and lust-filled. He pushed himself against me, slamming my front into a wall, and he roughly began to rend away my clothing as he whispered despicable things in my ear. I managed to free myself, but the onslaught kept coming. My husband's hands had never, ever touched me that way. It was sickening, and something had gone very, very wrong. I defended myself, but he was extremely powerful, and the group of onlookers were agog and unhelpful. They should have prepared for this possible outcome. Bitterness coursed through my veins. I blocked strike after strike and backed my way toward the table that had ceremonial blessed weapons. It was my last wish to hurt my husband, or rather his vessel, but something had to be done. I extended my senses, frantically searching for him, but I could feel nothing that was him in that body. He was gone. Kill him, I heard someone yell from a faraway distance, my heart constricting. Kill him, it will release the demon inside. How could I? My eyes saw my husband, the man I loved from the tender age of 13, viciously coming at me, assailing me. I felt the harsh, stinging blows blocked by my forearms. I felt the fury of the demon assaulting me. As the attacks became more furious, and in an attempt to protect myself and those around me should I fail, I grabbed 2 long daggers. I had no idea how I knew how to use them. I was running purely off instinct, but it made me look like a professional fighter. The demon left me no options, no routes of escape. I dove in, and with my eyes squeezed tightly shut and whispering a frail, "I'm so sorry," that I sank the dagger deep into what was my husband's heart. As the body began to droop, drain of color aside from the blossom of red around the blade that stained the shirt, and die, the demon surged forward. Upon the death of the body, it was exorcised and revealed its true form. It was no longer a dark, brooding presence in some back corner. It was flesh and coming right at me, emerging maliciously from my husband's body like an inky, red-faced horror movie. I had seen this face. before in my nightmares. But now, in reality, it was far more gruesome. My heart was hammering as it stood before me, towering over me menacingly. It smiled, its teeth jagged but perfectly white, and reached toward the table of weapons. It should not have been able to touch them, but it could. It chose an ancient-looking, if not steampunk-esque, gun. I reacted immediately, although everything felt it was like in slow motion, and bolted toward the table to choose a gun of similar construction. I zigzagged, making the demon readjust its aim, then fired. It seemed to have no effect, other than inciting it even more. I kept pulling the trigger. Slowly, the impact of each round had the creature taking steps backward until finally it was at the edge of a bridge just beyond the backyard. Just die. It wasn't a scream or shout, but it was me begging. Finally, a wound occurred in its leathery skin. Then another, and another, until portions of its bodies were fiery cinders blown away to be doused in the river below. I took careful aim now, leveling the barrel with its head. Kapow! A mighty hole. But it was still standing, half of its face still turned up in the most hideous of smiles. Its arm was blown away, disintegrating in the breeze and leaving the weapon on the ground. I spent the magazine, then dropped to pick up the gun at its feet. Another blast. It lost its footing and toppled into the river. I followed, still blasting, until the water became too deep for me to reach the bottom and its body began to sink. My adrenaline was fading now. I sputtered water and flung the gun to land. My hands were fists in the dry weeds that were growing on the river bank, half out of the water, numb, limbs unbelievably heavy, when a familiar hand came to rest on my shoulder in the most comforting of ways. When I glanced up, I saw my husband. My husband was dead, and the terror that gripped my soul after so much torture reached a maximum peak. I began to scream, these terrible, blood-curdling screams. And then the tears, heart-rending tears, ensued. The husband turned and ran out of my sight, but his presence didn't leave. His spirit was bound to me despite his death. A new torture was about to begin, seeing the absolute love of my life every day and never being able to make the memories we were meant to.